The crystalline palace shook as explosions echoed through the corridors. Queen Zara pressed her blue hands against the cold wall and listened to the chaos outside. Her silver eyes reflected the emergency lights that flickered red across her chamber. Rebellion had finally reached the inner sanctum. Her royal guards had sworn loyalty for centuries, but when the first blast doors failed, she watched them abandon their posts one by one. Their purple armor clanked as they ran, leaving behind only empty promises and the smell of fear. Zara stood 7 feet tall with skin like polished sapphire and hair that moved like liquid starlight. She ruled the Nexari Empire across 12 systems, but now she faced death alone in her own home. Heavy footsteps approached her chamber. The door burst open and a figure in strange armor stepped inside. Zara expected to see one of the rebel soldiers with their crude weapons and hatred, but instead she saw something impossible. A human. The soldier was smaller than any Nexari warrior, standing barely 6 feet tall. The armor was different too, made of materials Zara had never seen. The helmet retracted, revealing the face of a young woman with brown hair tied back and determined green eyes. "Your Majesty," the human said in accented Nexari. "I am Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Corps." Zara blinked in confusion. Humans were supposed to be primitive creatures from a backwater planet. How had one reached the heart of her empire? "The rebels are 3 minutes away." Amy continued, checking a device on her wrist. "We need to move now. Why would you help me?" Zara asked, her voice carrying the authority of generations. "Your people barely know space travel." Amy smiled grimly. "That was 5 years. Ego, Your Majesty. Things change fast when you give humans something to prove." Another explosion shook the palace, closer this time. Amy grabbed Zara's arm with surprising strength for such a small being. "Move," Amy ordered. They ran through corridors that Zara had walked as a child. The palace that once seemed eternal now crumbled around them. Rebel soldiers appeared at every turn, but Amy fought them off with weapons that fired pure energy. Her movements were precise and deadly, far beyond what Zara thought possible from a human. "How are you so fast?" Zara gasped as they climbed a service stairway. "Humans adapt quickly," Amy replied, "especially when we have something worth protecting." They reached the transport bay where Amy's ship waited. It was sleek and silver, with engines that hummed with barely contained power. Zara recognized some of the technology as her own, but modified in ways she had never imagined. "You stole our designs," she accused. "We improved them," Amy corrected as they boarded. Humans are good at taking existing ideas and making them better. The ship lifted off just as rebel forces flooded the bay. Energy blasts struck the hull, but the shields held Amy piloted with skill that impressed even Zara, who had flown since childhood. "Where are we going?" Zara asked. "Earth." Amy replied, "The one place in the galaxy where you will be safe." Zara laughed bitterly. "Safe on a primitive world full of barbarians." Amy turned to look at her with those strange green eyes. "Your Majesty, with respect, you do not understand humans at all." The journey took 3 days, and during that time Zara learned things that shattered her understanding of the universe. Amy showed her reports of human colonies spreading across space, human technology advancing at impossible speeds, human diplomats making alliances with species that had ignored them for centuries. "We were barely spacefaring when your empire first contacted us," Amy explained. "But humans have one advantage that no other species possesses, which is, we refuse to accept that anything is impossible." They entered the Sol system, and Zara stared in wonder at what she saw. Massive space stations orbited every planet, mining operations on asteroid ships moving in perfect formation, carrying goods and people across the system. "This was all built in 5 years," she whispered. 4 years, actually, Amy corrected. "We spent the first year just figuring out your technology." They landed on Earth at a facility, hidden in the mountains. Amy led Zara through corridors filled with humans working on projects she could barely comprehend. Scientists analyzed alien artifacts. Engineers built ships that combined technologies from dozens of species. Soldiers trained, with weapons that fired concentrated gravity. "Why are you doing this?" Zara asked. "Why help me when my people treated yours as primitives?" Amy stopped walking and faced her. "Because humans believe in something your empire forgot." "What?" "That everyone deserves a chance to be better than they were yesterday." They entered a large chamber where other humans waited. Zara expected to see crude leaders making crude plans. Instead, she found men and women who spoke with intelligence and authority. They had studied her empire, learned its weaknesses, and prepared for this moment. "Queen Zara," said an older woman with silver hair, "I am Admiral Lisa Parker. We have been waiting for you." "You planned this," Zara realized. "We planned for the possibility." Lisa confirmed. "Our intelligence suggested the rebellion would eventually reach you. When Lieutenant Rodriguez volunteered for the extraction mission, we gave her our best ship and our blessing." Zara looked around the room at these strange, small beings who had somehow outmaneuvered an empire spanning star systems. "What do you want from me?" "Help us build something better." Lisa said, "Your empire ruled through fear and power. We want to try a different approach." "Which is?" Amy stepped forward. "Partnership, Your Majesty. Humans work best when we are working with others, not ruling over them." Over the following weeks, Zara watched as human engineers studied the wreckage of her empire. Not to conquer it, but to understand how to rebuild it better. They reached out to species that had been oppressed, offering them equal voices in a new galactic community. The rebellion that had overthrown her government found itself facing something unexpected. Not another empire to fight, but an alliance that welcomed them as partners. Human diplomats met with rebel leaders, and together they began planning a government that served all species equally. Zara stood on the observation deck of the space station that now served as her home. Amy joined her as they watched ships from a dozen worlds dock peacefully together. "I still do not understand," Zara admitted. "You could have conquered us all by now. Your technology advances every day. Your fleets grow stronger. Why choose cooperation over dominance?" Amy smiled the same grim smile she had worn in the palace. "Because humans learned something important in our history, Your Majesty. The strongest empires are not built by the strongest armies. They are built by the strongest ideals." A new ship approached. The station, its hull bore the symbols of 3 different species working together on a joint exploration mission. "That is why we saved you," Amy continued. "Not because you were a queen, but because every being deserves the chance to be part of something greater than themselves." Zara watched the ship dock and saw its mixed crew disembark, humans and aliens working side by side as equals. For the first time in centuries, she felt something she had almost forgotten. "Hope, perhaps," she said quietly. "Humans are not as primitive as we thought." Amy laughed. "Your Majesty, we are still primitive in many ways, but we are also stubborn enough to keep trying to be better. And sometimes that makes all the difference."